Have you ever met someone who seems calm in chaos, distant in intimacy, and almost too strong for their own good, and wondered what really happened to them? You might even be that person, the one others describe as mature, independent, or hard to read, as if those were simple personality traits and not survival strategies. We're often told that tough experiences make us stronger, but nobody talks about what they quietly take away. There's a hidden psychology behind people who have gone through too much, and it doesn't look like weakness. It often looks like control. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as adaptive defense, a set of coping mechanisms that develop when the nervous system learns that unpredictability is the norm. When stress becomes chronic rather than temporary, the brain rewires itself, particularly in areas like the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, shaping how threat and safety are perceived. So what looks like emotional distance may actually be a calibrated response to a world that once felt unsafe. One common pattern is hyper-independence, which sounds admirable until you realize it often means I learned that relying on others leads to disappointment. Attachment theory suggests that repeated emotional inconsistency can push someone toward avoidant attachment, where self-sufficiency becomes armor. Another layer is emotional numbness, not because they don't feel deeply, but because feeling everything at full intensity once became overwhelming. The mind, in its quiet intelligence, sometimes chooses partial shutdown over total collapse. There's also cognitive dissonance at play, the tension between I deserved better and this is just how life is. And over time, many resolve it by lowering expectations instead of revisiting pain. You might notice how they rarely ask for help, even when they clearly need it. That's not pride, that's conditioning. People who have gone through too much often become experts at scanning rooms, reading micro-expressions, predicting shifts in tone before anyone else notices. Hypervigilance, a term frequently discussed in trauma research, becomes second nature, like background noise you forget is even there. And strangely, others may admire them for this composure. They're the reliable ones. The strong ones. The ones who don't break. But what if not breaking was never the goal? And what if bending silently became the only available option? The truth is, enduring too much doesn't just create resilience, it reshapes identity itself. And sometimes the strongest-looking people are simply the ones who learned very early on that falling apart was a luxury they couldn't afford. Here's the part people rarely talk about. When you've gone through too much, you don't just become strong, you become selective. Selective about who gets access to you. Selective about how much you reveal. Selective about hope. There's often a quiet grief inside. Not dramatic, not loud, just a low, steady awareness that something softer in you had to harden too soon. And yet, there's something else there too. A strange clarity. Research on post-traumatic growth suggests that some individuals, after prolonged adversity, develop a deeper appreciation for life, sharper intuition, and a stronger internal compass. It's not the kind of growth you'd ever ask for, but it's real. People who have endured too much often have an unusually high tolerance for discomfort. They can sit in uncertainty longer than most. They don't panic easily. They've already survived worse scenarios in their own minds. That calm, you see? It was practiced over and over. There's also an emotional intelligence that forms in difficult environments. When you've had to read between the lines to stay safe, you become fluent in subtext. You notice the pause before someone lies, the slight tension in a jaw, the shift in breathing. You understand people, sometimes better than they understand themselves. But here's the twist. The very mechanisms that protected them can also isolate them. Hyper-independence makes intimacy complicated. Emotional regulation can look like emotional unavailability. Strength becomes a wall. And sometimes they don't even realize they're still bracing for impact in rooms where no one is attacking. The nervous system remembers what the conscious mind tries to move past. So what's the hidden gift in all of this? It's depth. People who have gone through too much often crave authenticity because they've seen what happens when things are fake. They value loyalty because they know what betrayal costs. They don't romanticize life, they respect it. There's a groundedness to them, a gravity. And if they ever learn that they no longer have to survive every moment, that safety can be real and not temporary, something remarkable happens. The armor doesn't disappear, it softens. Strength stops being defensive and starts being intentional. They choose vulnerability, not because they suddenly became fearless and not because they depend on it, but because one day they realize they are no longer in survival mode and they are finally allowed to put the armor down without the world collapsing. It's a subtle shift. At first, it feels almost uncomfortable, like walking outside without a coat you've worn for years, even in summer. You keep expecting cold air, you keep expecting impact, but nothing happens. And slowly, cautiously, you test what it means to stay open a little longer than usual. Maybe you recognize yourself in this. Maybe you're the one who listens more than speaks. The one who calculates risks emotionally before sending a simple text. Maybe you've been called distant, intense, hard to impress, too serious for your age, too independent for your own good. And maybe you laughed it off. But somewhere inside, you wondered why relaxing feels unfamiliar, why receiving help feels heavier than giving it, why softness feels like exposure. Going through too much didn't make you broken. It trained you. It sharpened you. It taught you how to read rooms, how to anticipate outcomes, how to stand on your own when no one showed up. That's not damage. That's adaptation. And adaptation, when paired with awareness, becomes something powerful. Not loud power, not the kind that dominates conversations or demands attention. Not aggressive power, not ego-driven strength that needs to prove itself. Quiet power, the kind that walks into a room and doesn't need to perform. The kind that knows it has survived worse and doesn't panic easily. The kind that builds slowly, layer by layer, through experience, through reflection, through choosing not to repeat what hurt you. And the most beautiful part, you get to decide what to do with it. You can keep surviving, or you can start living with the same intensity you once used just to endure. If this resonated with you, don't just scroll past it. Share it with someone who always seems strong on the outside, the one everyone relies on, the one who never complains. They might need to hear that their strength makes sense. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday behaviors, the invisible patterns shaping who we become, stay here. Because sometimes the traits you criticize in yourself are actually evidence of how hard you fought to stay standing. And sometimes the most misunderstood personalities are not complicated. They're just carrying stories no one ever asked them to tell.